What's good, y'all? It's Sheridan, and I'm finally back with another music review after a pretty long break. These videos take a really long time as I spend countless hours listening, researching, and writing to really do the music justice. It is just my opinion, but I want to actually give at least what you would call an educated opinion, as educated as you could be on music. I'm not like a music theory guy or anything like that, but I listen to a lot of music. I've heard every genre that you can think of. I spend time searching this stuff out. It's really important to me. That being said, even though they do take a long time and it's been a while, I've really wanted to get another one in. So seeing upstate New York legend and friend of mine, Anthony Kannon, was working on a rollout, I figured it was the perfect time to start writing and talking about music again. I'd really love to spend more time working on new ideas and concepts for this channel, so please like this video and subscribe, as it's completely free and will hopefully eventually help my content get more exposure so that I can start actually monetizing even small amounts from all the work I put in. I'm going to continue to invest my own money in improving my content, so please make the completely free investment in me by engaging with my videos in any way you can. I'd love to hear any feedback or even have discussions about current or future videos to try and create a real community around music, art, sports, and any other discussions that interest me or you guys. Now that I've begged for y'all's approval, let's get into these artists. Since I've already reviewed Anthony's work for my first video on this channel, I'll avoid a long-winded introduction, but you can check out my review of his collab record with Blickadon and MBK Richie, Crew for Hire, which I've heard and hope is going to get a sequel. To keep it brief, Ant is a rapper from Ithaca, New York, who has been one of the most prolific artists in the Southern Tier for well over a decade, as not only a performer and recording artist, but also as a widely considered undefeated battle rapper. A to Z marks nearly a dozen projects dropped by Kannon since 2018, but he's to no surprise expressed that he feels his newest effort is his most mature to date. Producer Zilly900 is someone I only learned of in light of the A to Z rollout, but according to his Bandcamp page, he hails from the Bronx, works with some pretty talented underground artists, and is heavily influenced by the Griselda and Griselda adjacent sound. He even said in a TikTok interview I dug up that Rock Marciano is his biggest influence musically, also citing Wu-Tang's RZA in a similar breath. Knowing the direction Anthony's sound has been moving, to me, linking up with Zilly felt like a perfect match going in. But years of getting my hopes up for dream collaborations just to be massively disappointed have taught me to temper expectations as much as I can. But now that I've had plenty of time to really dissect this thing, here are my opinions on Anthony Kannon and Zilly900's new record, A to Z. The first track, Zil Van Exel, is likely named after retired Nuggets star Nick Van Exel. Exel spent a solid 12 years in the association and bounced around the league, but spent his prime in the Mile High despite only being selected as an all-star in one of his weaker years as a Laker. Gotta love that big market bump. Zilly kicks things off instrumentally with a smoky-sounding vocal loop that's well chopped with some very subtle drums and a methodical, almost droning bass line, which only changes notes at the end of each loop, creating a very moody yet menacing atmosphere. Anthony gets going relatively quickly, asserting his role model status through perseverance, but also admitting that he'd prefer to have taken a path of less resistance if given any other option. He builds on this idea, repeating "no survivors, no survivors, no survivors," in reference to what he describes as the land of heartbreak and broken promise, which I think could take multiple meanings, but in this case is most specifically Ant discussing what it was like for him and so many others he knew to grow up in such a volatile environment inherently caused by the racial and economic disadvantages that so many face in America. He weaves humble brags about the wisdom he's gained through his experiences into critiques of local politicians, specifically in the Ithaca and Tompkins County area, who do a lot of talking to get elected, but when push comes to shove, do very little for the people most underserved and escape to their homes in the Hamptons or wherever else when critiques get too bothersome for them. He calls them, and presumably whoever else is all talk no action, fake revolutionaries, and reminds them that when the time does come, when the people finally rise up against oppression, that they won't be forgotten. Ant's flow and delivery on this one are super strong, and I think Zilly's production sets a perfect pace and tone to kick this thing off. I also like that Anthony has continued to evolve as a hook writer, despite being much more verse-oriented naturally. I really feel like he narratively laces them together so seamlessly in this one in a way that a lot of rappers in this lane have trouble doing in a memorable or even palatable manner. I'm definitely pretty partial to the second song, Amy Winehouse, as one of, if not my favorite cut on this entire thing. I've compared Ant to my favorite artist, Mac Miller, to the point where I'm probably beating a dead horse, but I think this song is one of the best examples of that. I'd also like to make clear to anyone that hasn't heard Ant's music that by no means am I saying he's like ripping Mac off or something. In fact, they have very different styles of songwriting. I honestly just hear a lot of my favorite aspects of Mac's music in some of the songs Anthony's made. Zilly's production on this one also lends to that fact, with a super eerie piano loop that has this beautiful spatial reverb on it. The piano is accompanied by this jazzy bass line as well as another subtle drum loop that's all tied together with a deliciously warm crackle that I'm honestly not even sure was put there afterwards or if the sample itself was taken directly from a vinyl. The production in general is quite reminiscent of Faces era Mac, but you can also hear it a bit on the posthumously released Balloonerism as it was recorded on a similar time period. I'll say while Ant definitely sticks to a few themes on this one, it's definitely less narratively focused than the opener, but not in a way that affects the immersion too heavily. Anthony does say that while he'd be all set with some weed to smoke and a mic to record, it also helps to steer clear from the fakes and the liars. His flow and cadence is super laid back, but what he lacks in aggression and linearity, he makes up for in lyricism. There are tons of fun punchlines, entendres, and multi-syllable rhymes. I'll also say that one theme he definitely carries on from the first track is his general lack of patience for those who have half the success, determination, and wisdom as him, with double the opportunity. While he does continue to offer his perspective, he also asserts that it's not really his job to hold everyone's hand through it all. One line that really sticks out to me is, "How you let the youngest dude be the shooter?" From my perspective, that's a metaphor for a lot of Anthony's life. I've watched as he stepped up as a voice for the culture and unity in a lot of different situations over the years of me watching his rise in the upstate hip-hop scene. He's both respectfully and even sometimes disrespectfully put folks in their place, both older and younger, for the better of the community, and it's fascinating to me how despite the inevitable hate he does receive, that he's able to bring different factions of the upstate hip-hop and activist scene together to support his motion. So this is just another really fun cut with an awesome hook to tie it all in together and add to the re-listenability. On the third cut, MUSA, Zilly hits us with another chopped up vocal loop that's much more harrowing than the one from the intro. Ant starts off quickly and actually keeps the bars a lot more focused at first. He sets the stage describing the intensity of the environment he grew up in, which showed him a lot of loss early on in life and also created trauma. He also details the cold-blooded and regressive nature created by this environment that affects everyone. The subtle piano loop, which helps fill the space in absence of any drums, really adds the emotion here and makes everything feel a bit more twisted yet sentimental. Ant continues to focus on perseverance, celebrating his successes despite, but also because of his obstacles. He builds even more on these flexes than on previous tracks, starting to heavily emphasize his dominance not only as a cultural and community figure, but also as a pure MC. In general, this track just does a great job capitalizing on, but also maximizing the momentum from the first two. The fourth song, amusingly titled For the Sun, features a sample of a version of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face, which was originally written by Ewan McCall in 1957 for his estranged lover Patty Seeger. They eventually got married in 1959, but the song wasn't popularized for another 10 years in 1969 when Roberta Flack released by far the best well-known recording of the track. Ant attacks this one quite conversationally, barely even distinguishing between rapping and talking for the first few bars. Before you know it though, he ramps things up seamlessly and tactfully dances across the beat for the first half without getting too overtly personal or specific, but definitely flexes his pen the whole time. He starts to get more personal in the second half, reminiscing about his brother introducing him to hip-hop before spending significant time locked up. In general, this track stays pretty mild sonically, also without any super heavy subject matter, but the imagery and aura is so vivid that it can't help but add to the atmosphere Anthony and Zilly have established up to this point. Track 5, Bubba, incorporates the most Griselda-esque production so far and continues that theme in its brevity. Zilly hits us with another vocal sample that in this case cuts through any other element of the track sonically in a way that I could see throwing some off, but it almost feels like a siren to me in the way that would be reminiscent of JPEG Mafia style if he didn't hate Earl Sweatshirt, if that makes sense. Kannon's flow is insane on this one, adding to the sinister aura as he works different angles of the beat lyrically. Despite the brevity, I think this track sits nicely between the more melancholy cuts both following and preceding it. I find the sixth track, The Finisher, really interesting because it's by far the most left field production choice relative to the track list so far, but it manages to avoid feeling out of place. The sample is super bright, and the production is the most layered of any song so far if you don't consider the absence of a bass line. When they're around, the drums are actually more prominent on this one than they've been on any other track so far. Not only is the production different on this one though, but so is Anthony's approach. He hits us with 4 bars before the drums, arriving at the idea that there's not a price he wouldn't pay for personal peace, despite being thankful for any amount he's found to this point. Ant repeats this sentiment over and over even after the drums are introduced, and doesn't really get going until after over a minute passes in the song. He admits his exit from street-adjacent life, realizing there's nothing of value it can offer that exceeds the life he's made and built for himself separately. Later on in the song, he embraces the nature of his style being considered niche, somewhat recognizing but also shrugging off what he calls mass appeal. While I do believe he has the ability to cross over and do a bit of both, I love how he's always known what pocket of hip-hop he wants to live in. In a way, this one almost feels like an outro, but in the context of the rest of the album, you realize that it's more of a reset / segue to set the stage for the second half, which takes a bit of a shift stylistically. While the first half of this record has a very methodical and stripped back feel to it, the 7th-song Cocaine Hippos marks the moment this thing really starts to ramp up in energy. There's a very southwestern sounding guitar sample that drives this thing in the absence of both drums and a bass line, but Anthony ups his intensity significantly to a level that somehow makes it almost feel like a banger. His delivery is vivid and engaging as he dissects the instrumental, which has these really standout moments during various breakdowns and flips, adding to the mysterious atmosphere. I see this one as a necessary risk that avoids the direction of this record becoming stale, but could have ended up soiling the second half of the album if it didn't work out. Thankfully it did. Track 8, Ithaca is Gorgeous, is named after the tourist slogan coined in the 1970s to draw people to the many beautiful gorges in the area. Zilly provides yet another chopped up vocal sample that has a real nostalgic feel, and delivers some more grandiose and braggadocious bars that eventually lead to him working in the slogan to his rhyme scheme quite nicely. It's a solid track all around, and I can see the value in adding it for the production and title alone, but otherwise I don't see it as a standout in this track list. I'm definitely much more into the 9th cut Red Zinger on all fronts. Zilly chopped up a really smooth horn loop with a cute and sentimental feeling piano to accompany. Ant picks up where he left off thematically, but almost immediately starts to ease into some more personal and profound bars to enhance the already tight lyricism. He focuses on family trauma, but more recently, reunification. He also brings up the struggles of his body not working quite as well ever since he was shot in his back over 7 years ago. I honestly can't even imagine how that affected his bodily functions. He describes being 17 when his brother came home covered in blood, and Anthony told him to go on the run. Ant continues to describe that story, among others, throughout the track, while weaving in various lessons he's learned in the process, but also celebrating the fact his family is finally okay in many ways. While this one definitely deals with some pretty heavy stuff, it does end up conveying a more optimistic tone, but still describes the missing piece as his brother, who was only briefly freed before essentially being sent right back and still hasn't been released. The 10th track, Trifecta, is the only one with a feature, which has become more common on Anthony's solo projects. Early in his career, he definitely liked to work with lots of different artists, and while I don't think that's completely changed, he's definitely always been more selective about who he lets on his own songs, and I think that's even more true these days. In this case, he's tapped Mike Schaub, who's an underground Canadian rapper that I'm vaguely familiar with via Ant's recommendation, but only ever listened to that one record, which I do remember liking. Zilly's hitting us with this really grandiose violin loop that in my opinion really sets the vibe for an outro, but I do sometimes love when there are two outro-esque songs to send off a record. Anthony embraces the mood with some really tight rhymes that fit in so well due to his effortless flow. He gets personal almost immediately, once again referencing his shooting as the setup bar for the Trifecta title. He discusses his godbrother's suicide, and how he's really been unable to cope with that loss, invoking some pretty powerful but devastating imagery. I think Ant provides some of his most skillful flows on this one, and is able to carry enough narrative momentum to pass it off to Mike. Schaub sends it off to the end, and I think really elevates this one emotionally to the level of being among the best on the track list. He really adds his own perspective to Anthony's themes of struggle, tumultuous youth, and the loss of loved ones, while remaining true to his own style. I absolutely love this one, and it honestly joins Amy Winehouse as two of my favorite tracks in Anthony's entire discography. Finally, we reach the title and closing track, A to Z. This one actually re-ups the energy a bit, with another pretty constant vocal sample accompanied by a violin, bass, and nearly inaudible drum loop. Anthony's bars are fine on this one, but nothing narratively really stands out to me, and the energy switch up is honestly just pretty jarring. I also think Zilly has more interesting beats, and I think we heard 10 of them before this one. Maybe if it sat in the middle of the track list, I wouldn't have any issue with this one, but I feel like it sticks out like a sore thumb as an outro, especially when you consider it's also a title track. Honestly, this could have been a Lucy saved for a deluxe version or something else along those lines. So after spending quite a few hours with this thing, I can very confidently say that Anthony Kannon and Zilly900's new record, A to Z, delivers in a major way. Shave off a song or two, and I think they'd have a pretty perfect outing on their hands, but I'm honestly happy to leave room for growth in hopes that they get together again for something even better and perhaps even more cohesive. Since this is pretty much my introduction to Zilly's music, I can't really speak on his progression artistically, so all I'll say is he's in a really great place right now, and to keep grinding. I love his ear for samples, so really the only thing I'd say could elevate what he's doing is possibly integrating some fuller bass lines into certain tracks. I don't think every song needs it, and it's very possible that Anthony was looking to avoid them, but even cats like Rock or Billy Woods mess around with production like that sometimes. I love the drumless stuff, but I think you can get real sinister with the bass. As for Anthony, I feel like he constantly outdoes himself, despite setting the bar very high from the get-go. I think he's operating at a freakishly high level lyrically, so to me the next step for him artistically is to really focus on a theme, story, persona, or message over the course of an entire project. I know he can rap, and I know he can write, But how far can he take that? Knowing him personally, I believe very far. But that's one place I haven't seen him fully go yet. All that out the way, A to Z is still a triumphant victory for the duo. One that I think could end up getting some looks and opportunities for both of them when the right ears inevitably do get on these tracks. So all things considered, I'm giving this thing a 9.25 out of 10. Zilly900 is now on my radar. And Anthony has me asking the same question I'm asking about Nikola Jokic this offseason. Is it humanly possible for him to get any better? We'll see. But for now, get your ears on A to Z by Anthony Kannon and Zilly900, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Somewhere on this screen there will be another one of my videos for you guys to check out and hopefully start the binge watch of all my content. But please let me know in the comments. What did you think of the record? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Am I being too kind? What was your favorite song? And then also, like, what do you want to see for future videos? I want to start a community around what I'm doing here. I really want to work with you guys. I want this to be a mutual thing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.